The morning sun over Lagos spread a golden hue across the Okeke mansion, touching the marble floors and glinting off the silver gates that guarded generations of wealth. Inside, silence ruled, the kind of silence that money buys but peace cannot sustain. Mrs. Amara Okeke sat by the balcony, her silk robe softly brushing the rail. Once, her laughter had filled this home. Now, only the ticking of an antique clock kept her company. The world saw a powerful widow, but inside, Amara felt like a queen trapped in a kingdom of shadows. Her late husband, Chief Emeka Okeke, had built an empire in real estate and logistics. When he died, people said his wife was lucky, left with companies, land, and fortune beyond measure. But luck is a fragile thing. Amara quickly learned that money doesn't reveal character, it exposes it. Her children, once affectionate, began to measure love in assets. Family dinners turned into quiet battles, polite smiles hiding sharp intentions. Her eldest son, Chike, now spoke more about shares than memories. Her niece, Ifeoma, acted as if the mansion already belonged to her. Amara's youngest, Daniel, was different, still soft-hearted, still her child. But he was easily drowned by louder voices. She saw him retreat from the noise, spending more time with books and the old gardener, asking questions about humility and kindness. Sometimes, she'd catch him looking at her with eyes full of worry, as if sensing that something sacred was breaking. That look, that unspoken understanding, was the only thing keeping her anchored in a world that suddenly felt like quicksand. At night, when the house finally quieted, Amara would walk barefoot through the corridors, tracing her hand along the cold walls. Every painting, every chandelier, every piece of imported furniture reminded her of what was lost. Chief Emeka had once called this mansion the house that love built. Now it felt like a museum of betrayal. She began hearing strange whispers in her dreams. Voices that told her, see them for who they are. At first, she dismissed it as grief. But soon, those whispers started to feel like warnings. One morning, while reviewing the company's quarterly report, Amara noticed irregular withdrawals. Her signature had been forged. At first, she thought it was an accounting error, until the accountant confessed privately that Chike had pressured him to release the funds. The ground beneath her heart shifted. Betrayal from the outside world was bearable, but from her own blood, it pierced deeper than any knife. She said nothing. Instead, she began to watch. And what she saw confirmed her worst fears. Chike began hosting late-night meetings in her husband's study, doors locked, whispers leaking through the air vents. Ifeoma started wearing Amara's jewelry, laughing too loudly, and referring to herself as the lady of the house. Servants exchanged uneasy glances. Amara noticed their respect slowly fading. The mansion she once ruled with grace was becoming a theater of greed. Every smile looked rehearsed. Every compliment sounded like a transaction. Yet Amara kept her silence, choosing observation over confrontation. Weeks passed, and her dreams grew stronger. In them, she saw herself sweeping the floor, her fine clothes replaced by rags. Each time she woke up, her heart pounded with meaning she could not explain. One afternoon, she found herself in the servant quarters, a place she had not visited in years. There, an old mirror hung crookedly on the wall. She stared at her reflection and saw a face too polished, too distant from reality. "Who would love me," she whispered, "if I had nothing?" That question haunted her for days. She tried to ignore it, filling her schedule with board meetings and charity events. But even the applause from donors sounded empty. At night, she prayed for clarity, asking God to show her the truth hidden beneath the surface. The answer came unexpectedly when her loyal maid, Ngozi, brought troubling news. Chike was planning to declare her mentally unfit to take control of the estate. Amara's knees weakened. Her own son, her blood, plotting to erase her existence. That night, she could not sleep. The rain fell hard on the windows, thunder rumbling like a warning from heaven. She stood by her window, staring into the dark, her reflection trembling in the glass. "They see my wealth, not my worth," she murmured. 4 hours, she watched lightning illuminate the compound. By dawn, she had made her decision. If they wanted her gone, she would give them exactly what they wished for, but on her own terms. The plan began in silence. Amara called her lawyer, Mr. Adeyemi, a discreet man who had served the family for decades. Together, they arranged for the transfer of certain documents and sealed accounts. Then she called Ngozi into her private study. "I need you to help me disappear," Amara said softly. The maid froze, eyes wide, unsure if she had heard correctly. "Madam." "Yes," Amara replied, her voice trembling yet firm. "Let them believe I am gone. I must see who truly loved me, when I am nothing." Ngozi fell to her knees, begging her not to take such a dangerous step. But Amara's eyes held the determination of someone who had already crossed a bridge in her heart. "Do not fear," she said. "Sometimes truth must be seen from the shadows." That night, the mansion buzzed with quiet gossip. Amara had instructed her driver to take her out of town for a medical check. None knew it was the last time they'd see her as herself. As the car disappeared into the rain, the story of her vanishing had already begun. Deep inside her chest, fear battled faith. But beneath it all, a strange calm settled, the calm of a woman stepping into the unknown not for revenge, but for revelation. Amara did not yet know how far the truth would go, or how much it would cost her. She only knew one thing: by the time she returned, masks would fall, and love would either prove itself or die in the light of truth. The day of her disappearance began with calm skies, almost deceitfully calm. Amara woke before sunrise, her mind heavy with the secret she was about to live. Her silk sheets felt colder that morning, and her reflection in the mirror looked unfamiliar, as if she were already fading from existence. She moved quietly through her dressing room, choosing not her usual gold jewelry but a simple shawl and flat shoes. Even her perfume, once a symbol of her presence, stayed untouched on the counter. For the first time in decades, she wanted to smell like no one at all. She sat by her husband's portrait for a long time, whispering into the still air. "Emeka," she said softly, "I hope you can forgive me for what I am about to do." Her hand trembled as she touched the frame. In that quiet room, surrounded by memories of a man who had built her world, she felt a surge of courage rise within her. Love had made her gentle. Betrayal had made her wise. Now truth would make her fearless. By mid-morning, Ngozi arrived at the private garage with a small suitcase and a forged set of travel documents. Everything had been arranged: the hospital records, the false report, even the phone call that would later confirm an accident near Abeokuta. Amara changed into a plain cotton gown, removed her jewelry, and wrapped her head with an old scarf. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. "You look like one of the market women," Ngozi whispered tearfully. Amara smiled faintly. "Good," she said. "Let them never see me coming." At noon, her black SUV rolled out of the compound under light rain. The gatekeepers saluted, unaware this would be the last time they'd see her as the woman they served. She watched the mansion shrink behind her, the tall white walls, the manicured gardens, the marble lions guarding the entrance. Each turn of the wheel felt like erasing a chapter of her life. By the time they reached the outskirts of Lagos, Amara's heart pounded like a drum. The driver, under instructions, would later report that the car had skidded into a ravine. What no one knew was that Amara had slipped out long before, entering a small private bus waiting by the roadside. Her disappearance spread faster than she expected. By evening, every major radio station in Lagos carried the news. Businesswoman and philanthropist, Mrs. Amara Okeke, presumed dead after a tragic accident. People wept on camera. Neighbors left flowers at the mansion gate. But inside the Okeke household, grief took an unexpected form. Chike, her eldest son, wore a black suit too quickly, as though prepared in advance. His face was pale, but his eyes were calculating. "We must move on," he said to the family lawyer. "The company cannot pause for sentiment." Ifeoma reacted differently. She wept loudly at first, crocodile tears that soaked her lace blouse, but within days, she began hosting friends in the mansion, calling it therapy. Daniel, however, was shattered. He locked himself in his room, refusing food, clutching his mother's rosary as if it could bring her back. He couldn't believe it. Something in his heart told him the story didn't fit. But whenever he tried to ask questions, Chike silenced him. "Don't make this harder than it already is," his brother would snap. Daniel obeyed, but his silence grew heavy. From her hidden safe house, a small, rented bungalow in Epe, Amara watched everything unfold through Ngozi, who visited secretly every few days. Ngozi described the chaos, the arguments, and how fast the house had changed. "Madam," she whispered one night, "they have begun to sell your things. The jewelry boxes, the paintings, even Chief's watch." Amara sat frozen, her hands trembling around a cup of tea. The words felt like blows to her chest. "And Daniel?" she asked quietly. Ngozi smiled faintly. He still prays for you every night." That answer gave her strength, yet it also deepened her pain. "My poor boy," she whispered, still believing his mother walks this earth. That night, as rain pattered on the tin roof of her hideout, she wrote in her journal, "When love is real, it mourns in silence. When greed is real, it celebrates death." She knew now she had chosen the right path. The masks were falling faster than she had imagined. Days turned into weeks. The mansion began to rot from within. Chaik assumed control of the estate, hiring new guards and firing old staff loyal to his mother. He opened meetings with investors, bragging about his leadership of the Okeke brand. The same men who once bowed to Amara now toasted her son. Ifeoma, meanwhile, grew bold, strutting through the mansion in Amara's old gowns, posing before mirrors, calling herself Madame Okeke. Daniel watched in disgust, but his voice carried no power. When he protested, Chaik mocked him. "You always were her favorite, weren't you? Now she's gone, let's see if prayers can run a business." Outside, the city mourned, but inside those walls, the family tore itself apart. Servants whispered that strange things happened at night, that Amara's portrait would tilt, or her perfume would fill the hallway for no reason. Some said her ghost walked the compound, protecting the only innocent soul inside, Daniel. Fear spread, and several staff resigned quietly. Ifeoma laughed it off as superstition, but even she sometimes woke sweating from dreams where Amara's eyes followed her. Meanwhile, in the bungalow by the lagoon, Amara prepared for the next phase of her plan. She had cut her hair short, darkened her skin with herbs, and practiced walking with a limp. Ngozi brought her old cleaning clothes from the servants' quarters, a faded wrapper, worn slippers, and a mop. When Amara looked in the mirror this time, she smiled bitterly. Now they will see what they've become. Her reflection no longer frightened her. It empowered her. She was no longer the elegant widow. She was the invisible woman, the ghost among the living. But her plan carried risk. If discovered, everything could collapse. Her reputation, her company, even her safety. Yet she couldn't turn back. Truth demanded witnesses, and she would gather them herself. One evening, as the sun dipped over the lagoon, painting the sky with crimson light, Amara knelt on the floor and prayed. "God," she whispered, "hide me in plain sight. Let my eyes see what love cannot pretend." The following week, she sent Ngozi ahead with a forged letter of recommendation, introducing a poor widow named Mama Grace seeking work as a cleaner. The mansion's new manager, unaware of the secret behind the letter, approved the request. "We could use extra help," he said casually. Chaik signed off without looking. Ifeoma shrugged. Daniel barely noticed, his mind still drowning in grief. And so, on a bright Monday morning, a small taxi pulled up by the mansion gates. Out stepped an old woman with tired eyes, a headscarf, and a bucket. The guards waved her through. Inside the car, as it drove away, Amara whispered the words that would change everything. "The Queen returns," as the servant. And from that moment, the story of her vanishing began to transform into something even deeper. Not a disappearance, but a rebirth. The mansion looked different when Amara returned, colder, emptier, as if the walls themselves had learned to keep secrets. The grand white pillars still rose proudly at the gate, but their shine had faded. The guards barely looked up when the taxi stopped. To them, she was nobody, just another poor woman looking for work. Her scarf hid most of her face. Her hands were roughened with makeup soot. When she spoke, her voice carried the cracked rhythm of age. "Good morning," she said softly. "I am Mama Grace. The manager said there's work for me." The younger guard squinted, chewing gum lazily. "Cleaner, right? Go in through the back," he muttered. The gate creaked open, revealing a driveway she had once crossed in designer heels. Now, her slippers slapped against the concrete. Each step echoed like irony. The mansion that once bowed to her presence now ignored her entirely. She entered through the servants' entrance, the same door she had ordered repainted every year, and for the first time in decades, she was invisible. Inside, the air smelled of perfume and expensive deceit. Ifeoma's laughter floated from the dining hall, sharp and hollow. Amara's heart clenched, but she kept her head down. A young maid, unaware of who she was, handed her a mop. "You'll start with the downstairs corridor," the girl said curtly. Amara nodded, her eyes scanning every detail, the misplaced portraits, the half-dead flowers, the careless disorder. The home that once gleamed with dignity now carried the fingerprints of chaos. Later that morning, she heard Chike's voice booming from the study, the same study where her late husband used to pray before business meetings. "Tell the lawyer I'm not waiting another month," he barked. "Everything is under my control now." His words stabbed through her. She stood outside the door, pretending to scrub the floor, her tears falling silently into the mop water. "Her control," he said. "Not hers. Not ours. His." The word echoed like a curse. At lunch, she saw Ifeoma glide through the hall in one of her old gowns, the emerald one from her 40th anniversary dinner. She wore it without shame, posing before the mirror near the staircase. Two of her friends laughed, calling her Madam Ifeoma. Amara wanted to look away, but couldn't. Every giggle felt like a nail driven deeper into her chest. Ifeoma spotted the cleaner and frowned. "You there. Don't stand staring. Clean the stairs properly. I can see dust." Amara lowered her gaze. "Yes, Ma," she murmured, voice trembling with a mixture of obedience and pain. Her knees ached as she scrubbed the marble steps, the same ones she'd once climbed with dignity. For a brief moment, she saw her reflection in the polished surface, not a queen fallen, but a mother watching the masks of her children peel away. That evening, when the house quieted, Amara sat alone in the laundry room, surrounded by the hum of washing machines. Ngozi had slipped her a meal earlier, jollof rice wrapped in foil. She ate slowly, her mind heavy. She had seen enough in one day to confirm her fears, yet something inside whispered there was more to uncover. Love could not be proven by one day's observation. She needed to watch longer. Over the following week, her disguise became part of the house. Everyone called her Mama Grace. The staff treated her as one of them. Chike never looked twice. Ifeoma only barked orders. But Daniel, her sweet Daniel, noticed her differently. On the third day, he greeted her politely, even helping her carry a bucket upstairs. "Thank you, Mama," he said softly. That single word, Mama, almost broke her disguise. She had to turn away quickly before emotion betrayed her. She began learning their habits like a detective. Chike spent late nights in the study with strangers, signing documents he shouldn't. Ifeoma hosted friends and wasted money on parties. Daniel often sat in the garden alone, reading or praying beneath the mango tree. From a distance, she watched him, her heart aching with both pride and sorrow. He was still pure, untouched by the poison spreading through the house. She thanked God silently each night for that one light that still flickered in the darkness. But one night, everything changed. While sweeping the corridor near the study, she overheard Chike's voice again, this time colder, sharper. "Sell the Port Harcourt property quietly," he said into the phone. "Mother's death gave us enough sympathy to get away with it." The words froze her blood. Sell her properties? Without authorization? Her hand shook so badly the broom slipped. Chike heard the noise. "Who's there?" he snapped. Amara bent quickly, pretending to adjust her mop. "Sorry, sir," she muttered, keeping her back turned. He glared at her suspiciously for a moment, then waved her off. "Useless old woman," he mumbled before slamming the door. She exhaled shakily, her heart pounding. That night, she wrote a note to herself in her journal. Truth confirmed. They have buried me not just in body, but in memory. By the end of the second week, she had mapped every betrayal, each lie whispered between laughter, each signature forged in secrecy. She even found one of her diamond necklaces in Ifeoma's drawer, tucked under perfume bottles. Amara's soul burned with quiet anger, but she stayed patient. She knew timing was everything. One wrong move and the truth would vanish before it bloomed. Then came the moment that changed everything. One afternoon, she found Daniel crying alone in the garden. His head rested against his knees, his shoulders shaking. She approached gently, pretending to sweep nearby. "Young master," she said softly, "why are you crying?" He looked up, his eyes red. "You remind me of my mother," he whispered. "She used to speak softly like you." Amara turned away, tears filling her eyes. "God bless her soul," she said quietly. "She's still with you, my son, maybe closer than you think." Daniel smiled weakly. From that day, he began to speak with her more often. He would tell her about his dreams, his fears, his confusion. She became his silent comfort. And though he didn't know it, his words were healing her too. Every night, after everyone slept, Amara would kneel by her old bedroom door, now Ifeoma's, and pray. She prayed not for revenge, but revelation. She wanted truth to speak for itself. Her plan was working, but it came with a heavy cost. Each act of deceit she witnessed was like dying again. Yet, deep inside, she felt something shifting. She was no longer the woman who once hid behind wealth. She was learning what it meant to be unseen, and how clearly one can see from the shadows. By the end of the 3rd week, she had gathered every piece of evidence she needed. But one question still lingered. If truth finally came to light, would love survive it? Sit tight and watch out for part 2. Let us know where you are watching from and don't forget to subscribe.